Let's jump right in. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're embarking on what I can only describe as a completely wild philosophical and spiritual journey. We're unpacking a pretty esoteric text by Feng, known as Intermediate Cultivation. And honestly, whether you're a seasoned veteran of Eastern philosophy or you're just kind of curious about the nuts and bolts of the human mind, this text offers this incredibly rigorous, almost mechanical approach to spiritual enlightenment. We're going to explore exactly how this source material breaks down the process of literally taking control of your own consciousness. Here is our roadmap for today. We've got 5 main steps to cover. First, the quest for tranquility, then rectifying the restless heart, moving on to shattering the illusion of preconceptions, achieving unshakable stability, and finally, getting to the state of no mind. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the quest for tranquility, escaping the commotion.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand this, we have to look at the core problem that text identifies in our everyday lives. It sets up this super clear dichotomy between 2 states of being, tranquility versus commotion. I mean, think about it. How often do you feel completely trapped in the sheer noise of daily life? Because, well, we live in a world consumed by commotion. Temptations, conflicts, the chase for wealth, just endless noise. And according to the source material, all this commotion breeds what it calls fatuity, and it traps us in this heavy fog of endless desires. But on the flip side, we have tranquility. Tranquility is framed as the true home of our spirit. It acts kind of like the sun, just sweeping away that haze to give birth to wisdom and clarity. The text actually views the heart as the ultimate commander of the spirit. Basically, if your heart races, your spirit gets unsettled. So logically, managing the heart, that's step 1.
Which brings us to Section 2, rectifying the restless heart, the prerequisites. So, how do we actually achieve this elusive tranquility? Well, the source material is fascinatingly specific and honestly pretty demanding about the prerequisites. Before you can even think about managing your mind, it says you absolutely must rectify it to prevent chaos. And how do you do that? By following 5 very distinct steps. Get this, it requires an intense, eclectic blend of reading the Bible for clarity, diving into Buddhist scriptures for principles, reading the Quran for sincerity, the Tao Te Ching for the path, and then, crucially, learning science to prevent your understanding from becoming chaotic. It is literally an intellectual gauntlet, completely designed to clarify the mind by pulling from all this diverse worldly wisdom. But here's the catch. Simply cramming your brain with knowledge isn't enough. Not even close. The text explicitly warns us that if you look back over 5,000 years of human history, very, very few people are actually humble. And humility? It's the absolute, non-negotiable necessity here. The text posits this really profound idea. The universe is only as big as your heart, and the capacity of your heart varies wildly based on your ego. So the logic goes, the more you truly understand the vast principles of the universe, the humbler you should become. To really drive this home, the text uses this absolutely brilliant metaphor. It compares the human heart to a room. Think about it. If the room is empty, meaning you are genuinely humble, then it's infinitely useful, right? It can become whatever you need it to be. But if it's already crammed full of prejudices, biases, and preconceptions, stuff the text literally calls junk, well, it's useless. You can't fit anything else in. To cultivate yourself, you have to forcefully empty out this room. You have to be willing to throw away things you might consider incredibly precious, practically tearing down your own internal steel and concrete to make space. And that perfectly sets up Section 3, the illusion of preconceptions, shattering biases. Now, this is where the source material takes a remarkably aggressive approach. It uses these intense Socratic dialogues to violently break down a student's ingrained worldly biases. Remember, we got to clear out the junk in that room. To do that, the text targets some of society's most deeply held beliefs. For instance, it goes right after scientific dogma. The author actually points to specific quotes from Charles Darwin and Richard Dawkins to argue that macroevolution is a fallacy. Now, our point here today isn't to start a big scientific debate. We're just neutrally observing the text's method. It deliberately attacks what a reader might consider an unquestionable truth. It uses that intense friction to illustrate the perceived danger of deep-seated scientific preconceptions, basically forcing the mind to remain open to alternative universal laws. Then, the text pivots to completely shatter our moral preconceptions, hitting us with a series of rapid-fire rhetorical questions. It sets up a dialogue where a student confidently claims that helping the weak is good and helping the powerful is bad. Pretty standard morality, right? But the author counters with a curveball. What if you help a massive, powerful state, like the Qin state in ancient China, unify a broken nation and bring a final, decisive end to a brutal, endless war? Does helping the powerful suddenly become the ultimate kindness? It's designed to completely short-circuit the student's black and white moral compass. And it pushes this boundary even further with another super provocative thought experiment. It asks the student to evaluate a colonial capitalist who decides to build a shoe factory in an impoverished part of Africa. Initially, of course, the student recoils, calling it outright exploitation. But then the author points out that, well, this act actually brings roads, wages, language, and modern infrastructure to the tribe. The text is intentionally complicating the very definition of kindness. It forces the reader to weigh short-term colonial motives against long-term societal development. Again, it is a deliberate trap set up entirely to disrupt our ingrained political biases. Oh, and the dilemmas? They become even more extreme. The student, trying to retreat to safe ground, firmly declares that killing is always evil. So the author hits them with a brutal, almost unthinkable hypothetical. Imagine a 9-person military squad trapped behind enemy lines. One soldier is severely injured. If left alive, they will be captured, tortured, and will eventually reveal the squad's position, getting everyone killed. The squad leader makes the call to shoot the injured comrade. Is this killing evil, or is it a horrific necessity? By trapping the conversational partner in these impossible moral corners, the text is forcefully evicting that junk of rigid morality straight out of the heart. Interestingly enough, the tension in this intense dialogue actually snaps in a remarkably mundane way. After thoroughly destroying all of the student's values, a simple bowl of braised pork is brought into the room. The frustrated student eats it, declaring that, hey, eating meat is fine. But the author instantly jumps on this. What about human flesh? What about dogs? The student tries to argue that the slaughterer is the cruel one, but the eater is completely innocent. The author immediately highlights the hypocrisy here. Like, does that mean those who manufacture missiles are cruel, but the soldiers who actually drop them are innocent? It uses everyday acts, like just eating dinner, to expose the really arbitrary lines we tend to draw around our morality. Moving on to Section 4, Achieving Unshakable Stability, the radio metaphor. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. Once those preconceptions are fully shattered, we shift from a phase of destruction to a state of incredible stability. According to the text, when the heart is finally empty, the mind adapts like wind blowing through sparse bamboo. It just passes through without leaving a single trace. All these worldly concepts completely fail to disturb you anymore. Emotions like joy and fear, concepts of right and wrong, success and failure, human laws and contracts, and even your own personal identity and ancestry. None of it can entangle or confuse you. You are, quite literally, entirely unstuck from worldly desires. To really explain how this newly stabilized state interacts with the universe, the source material introduces a wonderful modern cosmic analogy. It compares the universal spirit to a massive broadcasting machine constantly beaming out divine information across space. In this scenario, the human heart is the receiver. Now, if your heart is full of biases, greed, and impurities, it's basically like a rusty old radio receiver full of static and noise. You're going to get incomplete instructions, which inevitably leads to a chaotic, unpredictable life. I mean, we've all had those days where everything just feels like static, right? But a pure, completely stable heart, it receives that cosmic broadcast perfectly, loud and clear. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the state of no mind, the ultimate formless realm. We have now reached the absolute culmination of intermediate cultivation. When the worries of the heart finally perish, your true nature manifests. The text defines this ultimate spiritual state as no mind. Now, this doesn't mean you just disappear into the ether. Your physical body still totally exists in this world. You're walking around, eating, sleeping. But your inner heart, it remains completely untainted by the dust of the world. You have successfully transcended the realm of form and desire entirely. Essentially, you've hacked your own consciousness to become totally immune to the suffering of existence. We're going to conclude our explainer today with this beautiful poetic excerpt from the Song of No Mind, which is provided right in the text. It goes, "It neither avoids nor seeks, neither praises nor blames. It neither hates ugliness nor admires beauty. It perfectly describes an existence completely free of duality and judgment. It really is the absolute peak of intermediate cultivation. But it does leave us with a deeply provocative thought to ponder. Is this absolute detached tranquility actually the true peak of human existence? And to achieve this ultimate peace, are you genuinely willing to get up every single one of your deepest moral convictions?" It's a heavy thought. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll leave you to think on that.